Hi, thanks for attending our webinar series, Redefining Productivity with a Digital Workplace. This is part 3, How to Evolve to a Digital Workplace on Office 365. I'm Daryl Trimble, CEO of SP Marketplace. For 5 years now, we've been providing out-of-the-box workplace solutions on Office 365 and SharePoint, anchored by an intranet and a series of operational portals and workplace applications. We allow you to take Office 365 to the next level to redefine work in your organization. In this webinar series, we've shown how you can go from a traditional IT model to a digital workplace on Office 365. In our first part, we took a look at what a digital workplace is, kind of an introduction. We took a look at the problem of what we call organic IT and the issues it presents. Then in the second part, we took a look at what is a digital workplace and what are its components, and how a digital workplace can be delivered through Office 365. Now finally, this one will be taking a look at how you can evolve to a digital workplace and the impact on your business. So let's just review what we talked about in part 1 very quickly. We talked about the problem of what we call organic IT. What it is systems that grew from the department out. And so many departments, as organizations grew, set up their own procedures, policies, as well as systems kind of in isolation from each other. And then separately, employees started to use Office applications and so on as kind of their base components that they worked with. The issue with this is everything is kind of separated on different platforms, different user interfaces, different sign-ons. And from the employee looking at this, it can be a chaotic web or tangle of solutions that they have to deal with on a daily basis. And what we found in part 1 was there's an impact of organic IT. First of all, on employee productivity and the ability to get services, find resources, and get communications effectively across the organization. And because of all the different applications and administering them, backing them up, supporting them, and so on, IT costs can skyrocket as a result of organic IT. And then finally, we saw that it can actually impact business visibility and growth, the inability to capture data to do executive dashboards without doing a huge warehouse project or something, which most smaller companies can't do, and the inability to bring in new initiatives, even to bring on new hires because of the complexity of many different applications in the IT infrastructure. In part 2, we introduced the concept of a digital workplace, which really serves as a central workspace that encompasses all technology, information, collaborations, and processes people use to get their work done, and how it can be in a common user experience from anywhere, anytime, on any device, so that employees can focus on their jobs and not the technology and how they get information. We saw that it actually can be broken down into a structure, this digital workplace. So it's not just a concept, but a real structure, which includes a platform, a set of tools that employees can use every day. Often you'll see this with Microsoft Office. And then on top of that, different components of how they actually work in the digital workplace, both as a member of a group or team sharing things, or as part of their job in a functional or operational portals. And we see how that all of these integrate together to create a digital workplace. And then finally, in part 2, we saw that actually on Office 365, Microsoft is very much delivering today those components of a digital workplace that you can start using right away to start to evolve to it. Things like the tools, the groups, operational portals, which are provided by third parties, such as SP Marketplace, and how workplace applications kind of redefine or re-engineer how processes are done, especially employee-facing processes. So that's a recap of the earlier part of the series. Let's get on to what we're going to talk about today. We've seen what the problems are. We've seen what the definition of a digital workplace is. Now, how do you evolve your organization to this concept? We're going to talk a little bit about the technology infrastructure, and that'll be actually quite a bit of what we're talking about. We're going to talk about how business processes may need to change and cultural considerations and even organizational changes. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to get started. In our first section, we'll talk about how you can evolve from your organic IT infrastructure to an integrated digital workplace infrastructure on Office 365. For many of you using Office 365, you probably started with using basic email and maybe some document sharing on OneDrive. This is really the Office automation. And what we've seen with the Office 365 type of maturity curve is that there's really kind of a hierarchy of maturity that happens with Office 365. This actually will be important in how you move to a digital workplace as well. So the next thing we see is generally then some collaboration. Collaboration might be with an intranet portal as a homepage and starting to use it as a place for the company to collaborate, get news and information as well. The next thing we see is starting to bring in operational processes and even having things like service portals for IT and HR that may be part of that intranet structure. And even bringing in some different apps or applications built in Office 365 that may be employee-facing, like time-off requests or help desk type things. And then finally, bringing in Power BI and the ability to start to report and create dashboards. This is kind of the evolution we see happen. Now, oftentimes, many organizations kind of get stuck right at the middle of the collaboration side of it and don't really know how to progress to the rest of this. But the key thing is the higher you get in this evolution, the more value you're going to get out of Office 365. Now, we've actually talked about this quite a bit in previous webinars that we've done in how to make Office 365 into more of an organizational hub for resources and workplace activity. So the interesting thing is many organizations may not realize it, but they're already into the evolution just by going into Office 365. So the first step of evolving to a digital workplace is establishing the Office 365 platform as a core workplace platform. And you may have already done that. If you're on Office 365, you're using it for email, calendars, and some of your basic Office applications. You're in that phase one of Office 365. The next thing that we see is, again, the ability to now bring in more collaboration. This is where it's actually changed a little bit because Microsoft has announced groups. And that really is a collaboration portals for peer-to-peer teams and ad hoc groups to share information and share basically documents, to be able to communicate, to track projects and tasks and so on with some of the tools that are available in Office 365. So the basic collaboration starts there. The next step you really want to get to, though, is where you now make it more of an operational set of portals and bringing the operational context of your organization. And that's really where you then start to bring in an intranet at the top level and what we call operational portals that are both staff portals and service portals, such as the My HR, My IT, and so on. And this really starts to put in place a structure that your organization and your employees can navigate through, some consistent ways that they get services in the organization, as well as find different resources and get what they need to do their job. Then finally, what we see is once you get that basic portal infrastructure and you're doing collaboration from that, you're sharing documents, then you start to add processes. And this is where you can add workplace applications. These are actually applications often built inside SharePoint, which has a lot of process capabilities, or they could be apps in the App Store in some cases for smaller utilities and tools that are then integrated into that operational structure. Also, in a second type of phase of process integration, you may want to start connecting your back office systems. And this is where Microsoft has come out with connectors and a number of other things. And again, doing it through the context of the operational portal structure. And then finally, once you have this set up, it becomes very easy then to start bringing in business visibility, leveraging Power BI, which is a very powerful tool to merge and pull data together and present it to the role that's looking at it, whether it be executives or sales managers or operational managers such as the IT manager or HR managers. And so this is really the evolutionary phases of moving to a digital workplace from a technology structure perspective. So now let's drill into these steps here and see what it takes in each of these steps. So let's talk about the first step in evolving the technology, and that's really the establishing a base platform. You may have already done some of this already if you're a current Office 365 user. So the key thing here is get Office 365. Typically, it's going to be small business or E1 for a minimum. And bring up your email, move your Active Directory to the cloud. We do suggest for this that you use a CSP migration partner, that's a cloud solution partner from Microsoft, because they use a fast track process that's pretty standard from Microsoft and is found to be pretty successful. Then the key thing here is then your organization will actually be using email and your Exchange in the cloud rather than on a physical server. But what probably will happen, and may be happening in your organization today, is they're still using Outlook as a client. That's not unusual, and it's very hard to move people off of Outlook, but to get the real benefit of Office 365, you really need to move people to using it online, using Outlook online, because this is where they get introduced to tools that they can use and other things in Office 365, learning to go through the browser and learning to use the Office 365 environment. Sometimes this may be a challenge of getting them off of client Outlook. I know for our organization, I actually had to make an edict that we were going to turn off Outlook client within a period of time. And there are reasons they may want to stay if it's hooked in with other types of applications, maybe a Salesforce or other things that only works with the Outlook client. But if you can, you should move as many people online as possible. First of all, it's going to make your support burden much less because you're not having to maintain all those clients and update them and everything else too. With that, now they're starting to use Office 365 and the platform online for their basic types of workplace tasks like email and calendars. And the other thing too is to then plan and set up some cloud basic file storage. And that typically is done through OneDrive, and it can be done very easily. And access is easy because, again, it's through that online interface. And you should do it for basic files and that type of thing. Don't do any type of mass move of your entire file server, because you're going to want to organize it a little bit differently within an operational portal structure later. So the result here is that your workforce will start to adopt the basic platform for a digital workplace, and they don't even really know it. It's just part of Office 365 migration. Typical time frame for this to happen is 3 to 6 months, though we've seen it happen much quicker as well. The migration itself does not take that long, but the actual education and some of the user adoption techniques that you need to use may take a little more time. The second step is really then to start evolving use of Office 365 and taking advantage of more than just email and basic things. I mean, you're paying for almost all of it anyways, and you get many more tools and components, services out there. So you want to really put together a strategy and plan for use of these tools, things like Planner, things like Skype for Business, even things like videos and so on. What you want to do is educate your staff on the concept of using the tools as well as the concept of groups. And groups is really the team usage and collaboration components of Office 365. And groups does not necessarily need to be by organization yet. It could be sales revenue group, it could be a competitive, products information group. It could be ad hoc groups that cross different departments. And you'll find that you put the groups together, you can introduce the basic tools that are part of the groups, which is the OneDrive, Planner if you've got that turned on, email is discussions, and so on, and introduce those tools one by one. With that, you can actually start using it for, say, project teams or ad hoc teams as well. So you turn on groups and the tools that go with the groups. Do not use these yet for operational departments such as HR and so on, because those are really different. They're different than just teams. Those are functional organizations that provide not only services, but also provide different processes. And you have to watch it with groups. They can get out of control fairly quickly. So you got to define some rules over creating groups. I mean, groups is not any good if you've got 100 different groups out there. That can be overwhelming. So we're saying phase it in initially team by team. And that now you're starting to take advantage of the tools and basic collaboration kind of structure in Office 365. And so the result is you have teams that get used to using some of the tools for collaboration. Typical time frame here is, again, about 3 months. The third step in the technology kind of evolution here is to set up what we would call an operational portal structure. Now, this is actually, if you think about it, almost like a website structure, but it's facing your employees, and it's internal. And it's what they use to navigate, to get information on, and so on. It's the time they will spend time in this in the context of their job. So the first thing you want to do is to really define an operational portal structure. It's usually topped by an intranet, then there may be some employee self-service or employee central, and then departments such as HR, IT, or even operational departments such as, branch operations or something like that. So this really sets up the organizational context of the digital workplace and a services structure that's consistent across different functional departments. That solves some of the siloed issue that employees have to face. This is usually built on SharePoint. It's a core platform for this. And one of the things we say here is SharePoint in Office 365 and SharePoint Online is not hard. You can learn it, and you need to really focus not on the central administration and server type things that your traditional enterprise SharePoint staff does, but really learn it from the user and power user perspective of creating sites and lists and managing, simple permissions as well, too. SharePoint is the portal platform, and at this point, you can either build this structure with SharePoint, or today, there's several offerings that allow you to buy versus build, and you can even do a combination of. Now, the great thing about buying this portal structure and operational portals, and oftentimes you can treat them as a template structure, is you get to benefit from some of the best practice design that these vendors have already learned over time with many hundreds, possibly thousands of customers. We are one of those vendors, of course, too. The other thing, too, is you need to make sure that it's more than just a homepage. There are intranet portal templates out there that provide a great homepage. They look great and everything. But if they don't do the operational portals underneath, you're not going to be able to really achieve the full benefits of a digital workplace. So again, you can choose an out-of-the-box intranet portal solution. You can implement it in phases. You can usually, for instance, with ours, they're 100% customizable. You can implement it in phases with the homepage first, then maybe some employee self-service, and then departments. Key benefit here is providing a common user experience for the employee, not only across departments, but integrated with Office 365. The result at this point is now you have an organized central hub for communications, services, information, resources, and collaboration. Now, the typical time frame for this could be a few months to a couple of years. And in fact, a lot of times it's an ongoing process of evolving and adding more and more capabilities and portals and into this structure. So we're going to spend a little more time on this because this is new to many people. So one of the things we've found is there is some best practices in this operational portal structure that we have found work. In particular, this is the most successful kind of best practice structure. Now, we're going to reference this structure really through the rest of the Evolve Your IT Infrastructure discussion because it'll be relevant to how different parts of the digital workplace fit into the employee's common user experience. What we recommend is at the top, you really have your kind of home page, intranet page. This is the page that employees can come in and get top-level organizational information, communications, news. You can also design it such that it filters out information for their location and provide even interactive things like ranking and comments as well. It's also a place that they navigate from to get to other parts of the organizational operational portal structure. At the next level, we have something what we call the Employee Central or Employee Self-Service. But it's a set of portals that gather all the things employees need to do their job on a regular basis in one place. And what this means is they don't have to go searching department by department for what they want. It's brought to a central point for employees and even managers who may have to approve things and do other things. So Employee Central consists of a central help desk or service request area there. So request or help can be requested from any department in a structured way. No more emails and chaos of communicate with, say, HR and where is my request and so on. A central documents portal. This is really for organizational documents that are used across the organization by employees. Things like policies, procedures as well. It's not really meant for very specific things like, say, account documents in your sales area or employee documents in HR. Those will still continue to be at the department level. And then also what we call a forms portal, but it's really a common business process. And this is where you might have employee-facing processes like time-off request or expenses. It also may be a place that you have buttons or links that link out to the different systems that they can get to, maybe payroll, maybe your ERP system, and so on. Now you've actually got the structure that provides not only news and information organization, but also resources and services as well. So this all integrates too and needs to integrate with departments. And departments are a special kind of portal or site because they're functional departments. Part of this portal is the staff portal. And this is where, say, the HR staff, IT staff, and so on actually runs their operation. It can be integrated with groups so they can do collaboration and so on as that team, but it also has functional type of components such as a help desk, or for HR might have onboarding processes, or for IT asset tracking as well. That is really the staff side of this portal. But each of these departments often is providing services to employees. So think of it like a bank branch. The reason banks have branches is a place that a customer can go to get services. Well, the same thing really needs to be designed into these department portals. So this is what we call service portals side of the operational portals. And it could be a My HR, My IT. And it's where the department can present the things they want to give to their customers, as well as access perhaps to some different processes those departments provide. And again, there is a help desk here, which is actually the same help desk as up here, but they can actually get in here, get at this. They can present different resources, links, videos, documents that are oriented to their customers. So like a customer page on a website. So let's take a look at how these interact as well. So what we have here is an operational portal structure, and it's really important, though, that it just doesn't reside out here independently as different sites. There needs to be consistency in look and feel. The departments need to be consistent in how they present their services and their My exec portals, as we call it. The intranet also needs to be kept up to date, and content needs to be constantly updated, or else it will become uninteresting and unuseful for the user community out there. So the intranet really is your place with news, announcements, collaboration, blogs, events, your employee directory, and navigation to other parts of the operational portal structure. It also needs to be personalized so that, say, when a sales manager comes in versus the CEO, they can get at the useful components in the other parts of the operation that is specific to them and get there quickly. So it's key that this is done right, that it looks good, and it needs to look like the rest of Office 365. Now, to make it active and keep content up to date, you also need to have it integrated with the different operational portals. So you need to be able to have news and information actually pushed up from the operational portals rather than just having a content manager running around seeing what's new in the organization. So for instance, if HR adds a new employee, they can put a news item on their news down here, click a box, it should be able to push it up to this to update it. Same with announcements, same with events. It all needs to come from the operation up to that homepage so that it keeps it up to date, driven by the operation of the organization. You also need to have it be able to communicate from the employee central or self-service level. So that common central help desk page needs to be able to automatically route requests to the correct department, such as IT or HR. You need to be able to capture new documents, such as policies, in the document center automatically. So when HR publishes a new policy, it needs to be able to show up in that document center. And even things like time off requests, travel requests, things that are forms that may even be going around manually via email for approvals, and needs to have a common approval process and then also be routed to the appropriate functional department for processing. So this is what we call an active portal structure, and this is really important as part of a digital workplace. Okay, so to step back a little bit, again, this is a base portal structure that really needs to be consistent across departments and be integrated, as we were just talking about. Key to this is once you have this set up, then you'll be able to build from this for the rest of the digital workplace and make a common structure and user experience for the employee. So let's talk about the fourth step. Now, once you've got that structure set up for collaboration, sharing documents, sharing information, providing services, and so on, now you're ready to really start adding in some business process integration into it. And really, what you're going to be doing in this step is taking a look at the different business processes across your organization. And many of those were really driven from the department out as back office applications that are now maybe trying to change so that they have an employee interface in them. A lot of times this is your HR system, sometimes it's your ERP system for things like expenses and so on. But what you really probably need to look at in a digital workplace type of concept is what you really need to do is re-engineer employee-facing processes as workplace applications. Build them on Office 365. And you're going to be able to consolidate some things, and it's going to give a fresh approach to some work processes from the employee perspective rather than a siloed department perspective. So examples of these employee-facing processes are help desks, time off requests, expenses. What you're trying to avoid is having a whole bunch of these separate applications that cause some of the chaos of organic IT. So again, it allows you to step back and have a fresh approach to some work processes. It does require some analysis. There's an opportunity, especially in the help desk area, for consolidation of applications, doing things the same across departments for common use applications like service request or help desk as well. Now, you may get some pushback from department managers who really still have the siloed blinders on and don't realize that them requiring an employee to use their separate help desk, which in the core capabilities of it are not that different than another department's help desk, you may get pushback because they don't see it from the employee in across many departments. They only see it from their department out. So there may need to be some education. So one of the key things too is you also may need to do some workplace interfaces with back office applications. So, time off could actually have to go into maybe a payroll system or other things. And so this is really where some of the Office 365 connectors or direct links to those applications from the operational portals or the My Service portals needs to happen. The key thing for a lot of these applications, we're going to call them workplace applications, is they need to fit in with the Office 365 common user experience and, if possible, be built on that platform. So you have the same users and group administration and so on. And these business processes really need to be accessed through the context of an operational portal. And what you're going to end up with is fewer best-of-breed applications and less complexity. So the result is now, again, bringing business processes into the digital workplace, common user interface to processes, less complexity because of consolidation. And typical time frame is actually an ongoing set of projects, one after another. So let's talk a little bit about the applications that make sense to do first versus later and how they fit into the context of the operational portal structure. The first area we see is that you may have some specific applications like time off or capital asset request or even office supplies request and so on that you can actually bring into your forms portal and automate and even have some common approvals. Another area is the Help Central or Central Help Desk, the ability to make requests of different departments and then actually routing it to the correct department for that request, but allowing a common process for getting help or getting services within the organizations by using a central help desk system. Then another area then you're going to find is that within the departments themselves, there's going to be applications. So in HR, you may have things like onboarding or policy management that are applications for the staff in that department. And there may actually be employee interfaces in the service portals as well. You may even have links to some of your non-workplace applications from those departments, from the operational portals, things like your payroll system or ERP system, or even out to different SaaS applications as well. So the key thing is to put access to these applications in the context of where they make sense for your employees. And second, to consolidate some of the best of breed applications where you can and recreate them in workplace applications built on SharePoint, built on the app model within Office 365. And again, a lot of these applications are available out of the box. We have a number of them in our operational portals, such as in HR. We have a full HRIS capability, as well as functional add-ons to it, such as onboarding, policy management, performance reviews, and hiring is an example. In IT, it is really full-on IT case management, asset management, and change requests as well. So these are examples of applications that you can actually replace with the workplace built applications that is all integrated, common user interface, and using the common platform administration. But the final thing is business visibility. Now this can happen again at different points when you're putting out the portals, when you're putting the process applications in. But really, you need to have the data and capability to gather the data into a common tool to get business visibility across functional areas. And this is really where Power BI, which is one of the tools that is part of the digital workplace from Office 365, comes in. And it allows you to really define how business measurement is done to objectives and look across things like look across internal services and how responsive they've been for employees across departments rather than by department. So it does allow you to define multi-level dashboards. It's very easy to hook up with Office 365 workplace type of data through applications as well as external data, and through a single dashboard tool. You can pull directly, again, from the apps, or you can use data from back office through Office 365 connectors and connect to things like CRMs and ERPs and even outside services like Google Analytics and MailChimp. And the key thing, again, just like everything else, you want them to be able to access the dashboards and operational data by role, executive, department manager, regional manager, and then access them in the context of their job through the operational portals. And the result is you're going to have much more of a re-engineered, almost organization-wide, consistent way to measure operational objectives. And because you're doing things in a more consistent way. Again, the time frame can be incremental from a few weeks to ongoing. So let's see how it applies against our operational portal, kind of the context of the organization. Again, you're pulling data from a lot of different places, and it could be from services across the web, it could be internal systems, and so on. And you're going to find there's different levels of dashboards and business measurement. So it might be at the department level. This might have even been deployed at the time when you built the operational portal and deployed it with teamwork with that department. But once you get several of those out there, then you can actually pull data from multiple sources into cross-functional executive type of views for business measurement. So really what we've covered here is the technical kind of evolution from the organic IT to a digital workplace type of infrastructure, leveraging Office 365. But just doing that won't make you a success. There's other impacts here. So there's, first of all, cultural changes. And it's really moving your organization from a purely functional, siloed, isolated focus to cross-functional workplace employee engagement. And that's a change of mindset, especially in the departments out there, because they're not used to operating that way. One of the things, too, is you're going to have to really focus in that area. And so you're going to have to encourage a corporate culture of autonomy, accountability, and engagement as part of this. So it starts with leadership. Executive leadership really has to lead this and drive it down to the local managers and the departmental managers. Education is going to be key. Really start from the top down. And most important, as I said, is department management, because you're asking them to change the way they're doing things. They've just invested quite a bit of time in getting all the right systems separately for their department put in place. And if you can catch some of them now before they buy best of breeds, if they're even in process of doing that, that will be a good thing, because the more best of breed applications they get, the more chaos it really creates. HR will have to play a major role in driving a culture of employee-powered engagement and collaboration as well. And it's really important to demonstrate the concept to employees for buy-in, and that's where the phased-in approach, I think, is very important. You don't want to, as they say, boil the ocean on this. Really, it's evolving those departments to employee-in, kind of an employee-in view. What is it, the experience the employee is going to get interacting to get my services, along with all the other services and other departments that they're working with, and really instead of the department out. So help them see it from the employee perspective. Educate managers that, on an integrated internal services concept and the concept of service portals as well, and set some goals for them to move towards that. Involve them in planning for this digital workplace change so that they can see outside of their department how it's going to help the entire organization. And design incentives to reward behavior change. Next, let's talk about organizational specific, not just culture. How your organization might change. Is there new roles out there and skills? Is there new internal processes and structures that you need to set up? Well, organizational impact is, again, focus on employee user experience. All organizations need to understand and support the importance of consistency and common user experience. And in fact, you might really need to make sure they understand that in some cases, it's more important that whatever the solution, maybe it's a time off request system or some other system, it's more important that it fit in with the overall workplace environment than to have the exact number of features that they want. Incent them to actually change and work with those workplace applications to meet what they need in basic requirements, that it's more important that it fits in than has the perfect number of features. And really, that's avoiding organic IT purchases unless it's needed for some very important reason. And it needs to align the employee along the employee life cycle from hire all the way through to performance management and growth. Other organizational impact is cross-functional consistency and coordination. This is really a key to workplace success. You need to have really a new structure that's agile and collaborative across functional centers, finance, admin, HR, and so on. All the functions are going to need to participate in the operational portal structure design. And really, they need to understand that they need to deliver services to employees in a consistent way with a common portal and common help desk systems and so on. It's breaking down the reasons they need to have something different as being more important than consistency to their customer. They need to coordinate workplace enhancements and changes for service portals. So if they have an idea for their service portal to change it and make it look different, it may be a great idea, but they need to also present that to other departments for consistency's sake. And the other thing too is what this really provides is consistent internal service delivery and the ability to measure that across different departments. So that, for instance, the CFO can see how his overhead departments are providing services to the employees, and are they doing their job? Are they being accountable for the level of service that they're providing? The other thing too is communications. It provides a consistent approach outside of the siloed departments to how news is distributed, alerts, information, events, policies and procedures, and so on. So it brings in that level of consistency is important just by the nature of this structure. You will find there may be some new roles in the organization. Functional areas may need to have what's called content administrators for service portals, or they might be service administrators. And this may not be a full-time job, but somebody has to think about what are we presenting to our customers as well, and presenting the right things in those portals. IT needs to go beyond platform administration, I'm going to plug in this network and watch this server, to really becoming a workplace structure owner and the protector of the consistency across the workplace, and making sure that new things as they are brought out, Skype for Business, mobile, are put in place in the workplace consistently. And there's even a new concept kind of rolling around out there, is the concept of a chief employee experience officer. And this person really is responsible for employee productivity across the workplace for the whole entire organization. Their whole role is to look and see, are we doing the best we can for our employees to make it easy to do their jobs in the organization? So we've covered a lot of information. Let's see how you can get started today moving toward a digital workplace. You need really to bring in Office 365 to get started. You may have already done this. You may already be using it as email and document sharing, maybe some basic collaboration. You need to get educated on the other components of Office 365 and some of the platform things like connectors and Flow out there as well, and even Power BI, which is an incredible product. I will tell you as a CEO, I love it. Once you get buy-in from the organization and executive management, doesn't have to be the whole organization. You might start with executive management because a lot of this can proceed without everybody knowing exactly or having to understand everything about what's going on over time here. But you'll want to create almost a digital workplace roadmap. You may want to even bring in consultants to it. There's a number of them out there that are doing this, and it really is sitting down and putting in place a long-term roadmap, which will be 2-3 years, on how you're going to go about doing that. And as part of that, you may even define your operational portal structure. You want to start thinking about what's the context that I want people to work in. You may be looking at intranets today. We'll expand that to the operational portal structure. Don't think just homepage. Think about the context of how people work and what portals should be put out there for that. And it really comes down to that intranets plus portal structure. There are a number of out-of-the-box intranets. Make sure they actually cover the entire structure because, as you saw earlier, you will want to integrate across those portals. And if you buy an intranet and then go buy a whole other set of portals from another vendor or something like that, it may not be easy to integrate. It may not be a common user experience as well. The other thing, too, is roll out the basics. When you move to the operational portal part of it, and you can do this actually sooner rather than later, roll out an intranet, roll out a couple of departments, and you can do that in parallel with Office 365. You can start to set that up in a prototype environment where you can then introduce that. It doesn't have to be in production, but as long as you have even one user ID on Office 365 that has SharePoint Online, you can start taking advantage of that to put in place that structure to show as part of your process of educating your organization. Start slowly phasing out operational portals and phase in this whole thing. You'll find that's the best way to do it and the best way to get user adoption. So if we take a look at it, it's all there for you now. You may actually even have it through your subscription to Office 365, much of it here today. And the key thing here is you don't have to wait for it. It is there for you to start to evolve today too, as well. And our part of it really is the out-of-the-box workplace solutions that are in that operational structure. That's what we provide at SP Marketplace. And you might want to even give your organization a demo or take a look at some of the video demos that we have on our site and on that Digital Workplace 365 resource page. So this is really the end of our introductory series to digital workplaces. We will have more blogs and more information as well. We also will be putting out over the next 2 or 3 weeks and ongoing what we call See It in Action videos, a day in the life of with a digital workplace, for a day in the life of what it looks like for a CEO to come into a digital workplace, or a salesperson, or an HR manager, or IT manager. It shows what their actual work day looks like online, and the different tools and work operational portals and so on interacting together. Come to spmarketplace.com/DWP365 to learn more.